Hey everybody. Sorry, I'm a day late. I had a crazy past couple days and finally had a chance to sit down and work through this discussion. I chose The Rogue Giants at Sea by William J. Broad, which was on page 122. Um, yeah, this one stuck up to me because I live in Oregon and I often spend a lot of time. I'm just about an hour and a half away from the coast. um, Rogue waves, tsunamis, that sort of thing is something that is constant, well, pretty much always at the back of my mind anytime I'm out there. It's impossible to ignore the tsunami evacuation route signs all over the place when you're driving up the 101 and throughout the different little towns and communities and stuff. So yeah, love being by the ocean, but those waves are scary, as I read in this article. Um, it covered pretty much everything about the elements of these Trinity stories. The only one that I thought was lacking a little bit was in the history element, and that seems mostly because this is kind of at the time of this being written. It seemed like it was kind of a newer study within the previous decades of the story being written. They did have a lot of perspectives, historical perspectives from um, old maritime, mariners and people who were out there in the oceans back in the day and observed these giant waves coming over. And there wasn't a lot of really in-depth information about what the context was from a historical perspective. Even though there was still a lot of different some good context provided from some previous accounts of big waves, and obviously um, that's kind of what drew the fascination of people to start researching them, and that kind of led to this story. One of the things that I thought it did really well was giving all the detailed information in the scope of what these things were and how these waves came to be. Um, I like that it kind of touched on the how they contrast with other different types of common waves that happen in on the coast or out in the ocean. And this first quote kind of stuck out to me because I was curious about if there was any relation from my own perspective. In size and reach, these waves are quite different from earthquake-induced tsunamis, which form low, almost invisible mounds at sea before gaining height while crashing ashore. Rogue waves seldom, if ever, prow close to land. And then it talked about how these waves, these giant waves, can't exist in shallow water. And just kind of explaining how big they can be, how they form. As a reader, not knowing anything about this, I came away with a better understanding of what these massive waves are, how big they can get, how often they occur. Also, kind of explaining that they happen all over the world. It's not one particular area, but this is a pretty common thing, and there's a lot of detailed information from previous people who've experienced this in the ocean, and lots of good quotes from people on cruise ships. And yeah, that really had a great element of scope in that. For me, my biggest takeaway, what I really appreciated about this story was the huge number of sources. There were sources from all over, researchers, people on cruise ships. Like I said earlier, this is a aspect that I do struggle with. I am an unapologetic introvert. I have a hard time talking to strangers. And this is always in all my other classes where I'm doing stories. Finding as many sources as possible is a hard thing for me to do, especially if it's a topic I don't know about or I'm not passionate about. So I think this was a great example of finding different sources and why that's valuable for a piece. Um, that's something I'm going to struggle with. I appreciated the wide net the author cast to find sources and the different perspectives that they heard. I thought that was really cool. And then the story that I'm kind of considering is something that I am passionate about, and I think I'm gonna have a hard time being objective with this story. Um, there's not a really way that anyone can take an opinion on what these are and how they come from. I mean, I think maybe from as they do further studies, people are going to come to different conclusions about how they form. But there's no really discussion about what type of issue it is. And the story that I'm at is very much divided. There are opinions, there are different perspectives, different approaches to the science with it. And I think I'm going to have a hard time keeping my internal beliefs and ideas outside of that and to remain objective. But I'm going to try. Thanks, everybody.